Hi guys, it's Until the NBB here talking about a new game I've been playing quite a bit. This game is called Armored Warfare. It just came out on the PlayStation Store as a free-to-play title, and it is personally a very decent competitor to its equivalent, World of Tanks, which is a more as a World War II based tank combat game. This one takes it to modern day times and has a lot more interesting dynamics that are thrown into this title. And personally, I would say I think I like this one more than World of Tanks, and I'll give you a couple of reasons why. But mainly, I will say that I am a bias towards modern military versus World War II era. So for those historians that like that aspect of driving the World War II into, you know, the Cold War era vehicles, then that's your style. That's totally fine. But anyways, back to this game. I really enjoy it, especially the particular multiplayer game mode called Global Operations. It is a little bit more dynamic versus the stereotypical team battles that you get in World of Tanks. The objectives in Global Operations rotate. As you can see on the top, there are 3 segments per team. Every time one faction gets to that segment, it causes a rotation of the flags. So it allows more dynamics, so capture zones don't always be in the same spot for the entire round, which is great. Plus, the fact is, you can respawn. It is amazing to not have to deal with the fact that you enter a game, you think you're gonna do well, and then you get instantly destroyed in the beginning of the game, and it's not fun anymore. I don't enjoy that aspect. So you get unlimited respawns, and I really don't know how much death actually affects your overall score, but I just know that I personally feel like you definitely get a more satisfying experience being able to respawn and refight objectives. Now, there's a lot more elements that are thrown into here. As you can see in the minimap, there's like these crosses that are towards our base, and they have some of the enemy bases. Those are pillboxes, and those basically defend our spawn point. Now, if the enemy really wanted to, they could shoot at every pillbox, and they could theoretically base camp you, but there is a 15-second invulnerability that happens when you first respawn, so if anything, you could probably get a couple shots out on enemy tanks before they start shooting at you. But anyways, there's also certain power-ups or abilities, I guess you could say, that are scattered around the map that you have to pick up to use. So example, there's that B2 bomber icon that is a bombing run that you can call in. Think of it as like an airstrike from Call of Duty. Then there's that little drone, which is basically a UAV, which, by the way, you can destroy fairly easily if your tank has a good enough elevation to shoot at it, or if you're an AFV and have a 20mm cannon, auto cannon, that can just shred that thing to pieces. But anyways, back to my main point. The global operations is a game mode that wargaming should take note of. I know that some people may like that aspect, that it's a do or die situation. Once you die, it's game over. But there are honestly so many times where you get into World of Tanks, you think you're going to have a good time, and then you get screwed over by an arty, you get screwed over by a long-range sniper, and you have no idea, in most cases, how it happens. Or, you just, the information sometimes World of Tanks gives you is a little bit minimal, I guess you could say. Oh, the other power up that you can also get, as you can see right there, it looks like kind of like a bunker. You can actually deploy pillboxes and set locations on the map to basically temporary stall, or even kind of use as a defensive measure at your own bases. So you can use a couple different power-ups very strategically. Now, as you can see here in the gameplay, I am actually going over to this repair station. You can also repair your tank. So amazing, because you don't feel like that, now you have to play super passive in the mode. Now, it won't fully heal your tank. It has a set amount of health that it gives you, but it helps your crew. It fixes your modules when they've been damaged. It is a just it helps out the gameplay and really just kind of makes it more of a enthusiastic experience. The other reasons why I like this game mode are, or not the game mode, but the game itself, is the different classes of vehicles. You have basically the same as World of Tanks, but there are some differences. AFVs are now introduced with armored fighting vehicles that usually are wheeled, but some of them can be tracks, and they have extreme maneuverability, and they have fire tow launchers. Like for example, that one over there. That one's technically classified as a destroyer, but that ATGM tow launchers, some of those things can be classified as actual uh, destroyers in some cases. But the distinction of different classes is very unique. All the different vehicles, they're very effective, I guess you could say. I will say though that there seems to be quite a bit of a Russian main battle tank bias, because they have a much better alpha damage versus, like, say, the American tank line. But to be honest, I don't have much in-depth guide about tanks in Armored Warfare, so I can't say too much about it. But what I can say though is the game's very fun. It's fairly easy to get into. Not to mention, another amazing point, especially for new players, they have PvE missions that really can get you into the mood of how this game plays and are actually, like, interesting. They're not just throwing into an AI PvE battle. They're actual mission objective based, secondary objective based missions, and have an intro cutscene sometimes. No, they don't have an intro cutscene, but they have intro dialogue and an outro cutscene. That's what they actually have. But there's just so many more little elements that they put in this game, passion and immersion factors. Like in the backgrounds of multiplayer maps, you'll see jets flying by, Chinooks coming in to land. Like, there's so many little things here and there. When you play the actual PvE game mode, you have dialogue coming in your ears talking about the mission. It's just, it's such a breath of fresh air compared to World of Tanks. What else can I mention? PvE is just amazing for the beginner players to kind of get into the feel of whether or not you even enjoy this game. Plus, it actually gives you a decent amount of XP and cash. That's another thing I will immediately say. The grind does not feel as intensive as it does in World of Tanks. If you do good in this game, you will be rewarded greatly. Now, sure, the inflation of cash and research for certain vehicles does appear to be higher, but you do earn them higher. For example, the Tier 8 Abrams, which is an M1A2 Abrams, costs about 8.2 million credits to get. It's fairly expensive, but as you can see by the time I end this gameplay, you earn about, at this tier between 120 and with premium probably 220,000 credits. So it doesn't take as terribly long. Plus, the actual research isn't as terrible either. So I give a major thumbs up to the actual grind itself, because it doesn't feel as intensive and I guess punishing. But that definitely also goes in the fact that global operations allows you to actually do more with your tanks versus World of Tanks. And it's just that satisfying aspect that I can still play my tank all the way to the end of the match versus losing my tank at the beginning of the game and have to wait 5 minutes and play a different tank. I don't know. Seriously, Wargaming should take note by this developer with this game mode. It is a much more enthralling experience in my opinion. Other things that I can mention, there are some pretty interesting not abilities, but other tools that you can use on the battlefield. For example, the smoke that is a given to all tanks in the game that basically provide an instant wall of cover when needed. If any World of Warships people out there listening to this video, it is kind of similar in that way to like a destroyer firing smoke out, except it's just in one direction. See right there, that MBT just fired an ATGM. It's very interesting how many, like, they still keep things to an accurate pace where some tanks will actually fire different kinds of shells for the certain situations. What else can I mention that I do enjoy more? For one, you can see on the mini-map, it has a giant circle that is your spotting range, and the other circle in there, I don't know if I can see it in this case. The circle that's going around right now, that's a UAV actually spotting the enemy team. I'll put that in my gripe section. But other than that, the other ability that you get at higher tiers is the ability to, depending on where your turret is, if your turret's aiming in the direction of a guided tow launcher, you could possibly eliminate that uh, that guided rocket from hitting your tank, which is very cool. I love the more detailed, modular, specific overview of your tank in the bottom left-hand corner. You can see even my armored plating that's on the sides, and yes, when it does get damaged, as you could kind of see from that clip there, it does show you like the that part of your ammo being destroyed. And that armor, by the way, is an actual armor that you research, so is you can easily look up other gameplays that show you it. Quick gripes real quick. For one, it's sucky enough as it is, there's just not enough people seem to be playing, so it's just 5v5 game modes. I did get into one 15v15 and it was amazing. Just crazy action 90% of the time, battles just going on back and forth, just as a crazy tug of war, especially on this map. This map, it's like it's small, uh, and when you put 15v15, it gets pretty intensive. Second thing I would immediately like to say, there is only 2 maps for PvP, and it needs to change soon, just because these maps are starting to get kind of old. I'm not completely bored yet, because I'm still kind of feeling the newness of this game. But if they don't start adding maps soon, like 2 to 4 maps within like another update, this game's gonna get very boring very quickly. 3, I would definitely say that possibly there might be some balance issues. Maybe, I'm not sure. It just does feel like right now that the Abrams has there's some javelins from those pillboxes wrecking my Abrams. I just said screw it and just kind of killed myself just because what I was going to lead up to is another major problem in this game is the rage quitting. There should be a punishment for people who leave in the middle of a game like this, because there's so many times that once a team starts losing, they immediately leave and there's no punishment for them leaving. And as you can see in this case, there's actually a person on the enemy team who is actually killing their own teammates that are AFK. Now I get sometimes people like lose connection and stuff, but it's pretty consistent how often some people have just, they don't even fight at all once the initial round starts and they know their team's gonna lose. Like, still fight. I mean, you still get points for it. Yeah, that's just a big problem right now is the AFK. I have heard from multiple other people of crashes, freezes, sometimes save data getting corrupted so you won't be able to re-enter a match, but it doesn't affect your progress. That's all online, so you shouldn't have to worry about your save file and all your progress being removed. So other than that, the maybe increase the actual amount of XP and money given in PvE, because you do get significantly more cash and research just playing PvP. Like, you could still do a terrible game and still get better than PvE. So my incentive to actually play PvP or PvE in these higher tiers just seems kind of useless. I will say though that if you like spend all your money, that could be slightly counterintuitive, because it does cost a certain amount of cash to enter a PvP game mode. For example, it does cost 15,000 or 45,000 at tier 7 to actually do this. So as you can see, rounds over. It was kind of a sad round personally for me, just because the enemy team just kind of gave up. But that I just really wanted to show the gameplay of, just a kind of overview of how this game looks, how it plays without much difficulty being thrown at you. I will probably throw up another video of things becoming more intense. So I'll just real quick show you what the pop-up menu shows. It still says top player and stuff like that. Definitely look up some other gameplay if you're really interested, or you can check back in with me because I might have some content posted. Anyways, have a good day. Peace out.